What's going on, guys? Kevin here from thesportsgeek.com, and in this video I'm going to go over my DraftKings and FanDuel NFL Week 12 picks for the Thanksgiving Day games. So this week I'm going to break it down into two different videos. I'm going to cover the 3-game slate for Thanksgiving in this video, and then most likely on Friday I'll release my main video for the main Sunday slate for Week 12. So let's get right into the Thanksgiving Day game picks. All right, so before we move on to the Thanksgiving Day picks, let's take a look back at my picks from last week's video. Overall, pretty rough week. You can see there just the two solid picks, T.Y. Hilton with 20.7 DraftKings points and Julian Edelman with 22.9. We had some bad picks, Delaney Walker with just 7.6 points. Martellus Bennett was a popular play. He put up 2.4 points, and Tyreek Hill with 10.1. And then very average picks around those guys as well. So not a great week for me. I did get off Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown as a stack. I sent out 2 email updates about that just because of the bad weather there in Cleveland, the high winds. I wanted to get off those 2 guys. So make sure that you are signed up for my email updates. If you're not already signed up, just click on the lineup tool link in the YouTube description below. And then I also want to give a big shout out to LJ who follows the videos. He was in first at one point in the casual flea flicker, winning $20,000. He sent me a screenshot of that, but he ended up dropping down a little bit, finishing 12th for a cool $750 and total weekend winnings of about $850, he said. So big congrats to LJ. If you guys didn't win in week 11, hopefully week 12 is your week and your screenshot will be up here next week. So for this Thanksgiving Day special video, I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to have a screenshot from Fantasy Labs for each position, and I'm going to have players that I like and players that I don't really like. And you're going to be able to tell which players I like because they're going to have that green check mark beside their name. And that means I'll probably have them in at least 10% of my lineups. If I'm doing multiple lineups, I might have them, let's say I'm doing 100 lineups, I might have them in 10 to 30 of those lineups. It just depends on the players. That might change as well. But for the most part, they're just players that I like. And the players that have the red circle beside their name, they're players that I don't really like. I'll probably have somewhere between 0 to 5% exposure to. So a lot of them I won't have any lineups with them in, and a couple of them I might throw in just a couple lineups. But for the most part, the players with the green check marks are the players that I like. And for each position, I'm going to talk about 1 or maybe 2 players that I really like from that position. All right, so starting off with the quarterback position, for this video, I'm also going to just kind of be casually talking. I've got my other screen up with Fantasy Labs. I'll be looking at some stats and some numbers and talking instead of having out written points. But for quarterback position here, we've got 4 quarterbacks that I like this week. The 2 that I don't really like, Sam Bradford on the road in Detroit as an underdog. That game's got the lowest total of the day at 41.5 points currently. And then Scott Tolzien is filling in for Andrew Luck, most likely. It's not 100% confirmed, but that's the way it looks. So they're going to be big underdogs against Pittsburgh. They are at home, but I just don't trust Scott Tolzien. So I probably won't have him in many lineups at all, if any. The 4 quarterbacks I do like there, Stafford, Cousins, Prescott, and my favorite is Ben Roethlisberger. 7,300, so he is more expensive than the other quarterbacks by quite a bit. But they're 7.5 point favorites on the road in Indianapolis, expected to score 28 points, roughly 28 points or 4 touchdowns. So I think if they do hit that number, if they do score 28 points, I would say that Ben Roethlisberger might throw for 3 touchdowns, possibly even 4 touchdowns, although I'd expect at least one of them to come on the ground. So I think Ben will have a big day. He's 7,300. So it's going to be a little tough to fit in the higher priced running backs and receivers with him. But I think he's a good play this week. For Thursday, I'll have quite a bit of exposure to him. He scored 25 or more DraftKings points 5 times this year, and the Colts are 30th in yards against per play and 27th in yards against per pass attempts. So Roethlisberger will be my favorite quarterback of the week. It just kind of depends on lineup construction on how much I have him in my lineups because he is quite a bit more expensive than the other options up there. Next up, we got the running backs, and these are the higher priced running backs listed here. There is some other running backs you could play below Rob Kelly, but they're more of either a split role in Minnesota, or you've got some third down backs like Chris Thompson that you could look at. But for the most part, most people will be playing these 6 running backs, and right away, I'm going to be taking away Alfred Morris. I don't think he gets many opportunities. I think Ezekiel Elliott's going to get the ball a ton. Most people won't be on Alfred Morris, but he's priced really high here. so he's included in the screenshot. Frank Gore, I don't think I'm going to have many of the Colts at all, just given the fact that I think that their offense might struggle without Andrew Luck. Frank Gore will get the ball quite a bit, I think, but he's 5,200. He doesn't have a high ceiling with Andrew Luck, and I think that ceiling kind of drops without him, just because I don't think they'll be in the red zone as much. You never know, though. He did look good in his last game at home against Tennessee last week, but I don't think I'll have too much of Frank Gore. I think I'm going to be sticking with these four guys. Obviously, everyone's going to be on Le'Veon Bell. He's $9,000. He's coming off a monster game. Again, the Steelers are expected to score about 28 points, so Bell should contribute to that. He should have a big game. It's just his price is so expensive. It's going to be tough to fit him in lineups, but he's coming off two games where he scored 37 and 34 DraftKings points. Then we've got Ezekiel Elliott, 8,500. Again, he's going to be very popular, kind of an obvious play. He is coming off a game where he only put up 16.7 DraftKings points, but that was against Baltimore, who had the number one rated run defense. Now they're facing Washington, who is towards the bottom of the league. I've looked at these 6 teams, and the Redskins over the last 2 months are giving up 4.6 yards per rush. So that was second worst behind the Colts. So Colts and Redskins were the 2 worst in the last 2 months for the teams playing on Thanksgiving Day. And the 2 running backs that I like best are Le'Veon Bell and Ezekiel Elliott, facing those 2 defenses. But it's going to be close to impossible to fit them both in a lineup and feel good about a lineup. But I will be trying to do that with some lineups, I'm sure. It's going to be very tough with their prices. Theo Riddick is a guy I liked last week. I don't like him as much against Minnesota, but I probably will have him in some lineups. Rob Kelly's a guy that I really like as well, 4,300. Again, that's the game with the highest total of the week, Washington at Dallas, with a total of 51.5 points. Kelly's still very cheap, even though he put up 34 DraftKings points last week against Green Bay. He's gotten the ball. He's carried the ball 20 or more times in 3 straight games. So I think that's a great price for Kelly. I'll definitely have quite a bit of Kelly as well. So overall, I'd say my 3 top running backs are Bell, Elliott, and Kelly, and then Riddick would be well behind in 4th. Next up, we've got wide receivers. On the left-hand side there, we've got the highest priced wide receivers, and then the column kind of continues there on the right-hand side. You can see there's 4 players with the red circle beside their name, players that I don't really like. Starting off, we have T.Y. Hilton. Again, I don't think Indianapolis will do too much with Scott Tolzien at quarterback, so I don't really want to spend up on someone like Hilton, who's 7,900. I'd rather go to someone like Dez, who's a little cheaper, or spend up and go to Antonio Brown. Stephon Diggs is dealing with an injury. I'm not too sure if he's going to be playing. He is questionable, but even if he is playing, I don't like him too much. Just the price isn't right for me. I don't think the Vikings will score too many points. I think Diggs will be maybe shadowed a little bit in that game. I don't know if Darius Slay will shadow him, but Detroit's been pretty good against the pass, so I don't think I'll have Stephon Diggs too much if he is playing, but make sure that you do check if he's playing or not if you have him in your lineups. Because it looks like he's kind of leaning more towards doubtful, but it's tough to say. He's just not practicing, so he could play on the short week, even without practice. So keep an eye on that. Dante Moncrief, I don't really like him. I'd probably rather play him over spending money on T.Y. Hilton, but I don't really like either of those guys. And then Sammy Coates there is listed at 3,500, but he's a guy who is dealing with 2 broken fingers, has been dropping a lot of passes, so he kind of got demoted to the 4th wide receiver in Pittsburgh. I would rather go, if you wanted to go cheap in Pittsburgh, I would go with Kobe Hamilton or Eli Rogers. But obviously my favorite player to stack with Roethlisberger would be Antonio Brown. Other than Antonio Brown, I think one of my favorite plays would be Jamison Crowder. I like him pretty much every week, just how consistent he's been. Double-digit DraftKings points in 6 straight games. I'm just looking at his game log here on my other screen. 22, 14, 28, 20 DraftKings points over his last 4 games. So he's been very consistent. Hasn't been getting a ton of targets the last couple games, 6 and 3 targets over his last 2 games, but he did get a touchdown in both those games. He's gotten a touchdown in 3 of 4 games. So I would say Antonio Brown would be my top receiver of the week. Jamison Crowder would probably be my next favorite for the price at just 5,800. And then my somewhat sneaky play will probably be a little more popular if Diggs is out, but Adam Thielen for Minnesota might be a good play, especially if Diggs is out, although he will get a little more attention, so he might even be a better play if Diggs is actually in, because Diggs might be injured and kind of a little bit of a decoy. But I like Adam Thielen at 4,000. And I also like the Detroit wide receivers, Marvin Jones and Golden Tate. I think one of them will have a big game, just not really sure who. So I think I'll be playing both of those guys in some lineups. The Vikings secondary is a little banged up. So I think Detroit can get something going through the air. I'll be playing those two guys as well. Moving on to tight end, there's 4 tight ends I like this week. Pretty obvious plays. They're the higher priced tight ends. Jordan Reed, Eric Ebron, Kyle Rudolph, and Jason Witten. I think ownership will be pretty evenly distributed between those 4. I'd say maybe the cheaper guys will have higher ownership. Jordan Reed does have a ton of upside if he does get the targets. He hasn't really shown that as much this year, but if you can remember last year, he had some monster games. So Jordan Reed could be a good play that might go under-owned a little bit. But my favorite would be maybe the most popular of the week, Jason Witten, who's the cheapest of the bunch. He's 3,200. He's gotten 7, 8, and 10 targets over his last 3 games, where he's put up 8, 11, and 30 DraftKings points. I wouldn't expect 30 DraftKings points like he put up against Cleveland, but Dallas does have the highest implied total. They're expected to score the most points on Thursday. So I think he could get into the action, maybe put up 15 DraftKings points. So I think he would be my favorite tight end, but I like all 4 of those guys, and I'll probably have around 15 to 20% exposure to each of those 4 guys. And then for defenses, I'm pretty open to playing any defense on Thursday, depending on the lineup, which players I have in that lineup, and how much salary I have left over. But I'd say my favorite defense this week is the Steelers at 2,800 up against Scott Tolzien. All right, guys, so that wraps up my NFL Week 12 Thanksgiving Day picks video. If you guys want me to do one for Sunday's slate for Week 12, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. And other than that, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the family time and, of course, the football time, and good luck in your contests. If you don't want to miss out on any videos that I post, I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. To do that, just click on this button over here. Or if you want to watch another one of my videos that I think you'll enjoy, click on the video image over here.